Today, we're dedicating a renovated space and celebrating the many hands that have made it possible and the journey that God has taken us through to get here. Actually, the word journey doesn't do justice to this past season. It's been more of a roller coaster ride and not one of those new, smooth, high speed, high excitement, strapped into your safety is the highest priority coasters. More like one of those old wooden roller coasters where it's loud and bumpy and jerky and there's no seatbelt and you're screaming for dear life because you're sure that the car is going to come off the rails at any moment. So, to fully appreciate this space and how we got from there to here, let's rewind back to 2018. Recognizing that the auditorium was in need of some physical and cosmetic upgrades, mutual friends introduced us to architects Al Fritz and Graham Auerkirk from an architectural firm in Lethbridge. Al and Graham are passionate Jesus followers and have worked on a significant number of churches and projects just like this one. It took about 2 seconds to become friends, and instantly there was a united vision for what was possible. Then, just before a 5-phased plan was going to be introduced to members in the spring of 2020, a little thing called a pandemic derailed any kind of launch. On March 20th, 2020, a small studio audience-like service was captured and then streamed online. This was the infamous service where Scott taught us all how to properly wash our hands, and we were reminded that God is still in control when everything seems like it's not. Little did we know that would be the last service we would ever hold in the auditorium as we knew it. Without a clue of how the pandemic would affect the church, wisdom dictated that any kind of renovation plans would be put on hold. Little did we know how bumpy and long that roller coaster ride would be. This was the birth of Trinity Church Anywhere, the biblical perspective that the church isn't a building, but a people. And people from literally all over the world watch Trinity online, from laptops, TVs, and phones, in living rooms, offices, and gyms. Trinity Church was now anywhere. We captured and streamed our weekend services. We recorded musical worship moments to engage with online. We even streamed a couple of online prayer summits from the auditorium, but without a single person in a pew. During one of those recordings, a team member projected a paraphrase of Isaiah 60, verse 2 on the back wall of the balcony. God will release the greatest revival in the church in the midst of the greatest time of escalating darkness. A few weeks later, on June 20th, 2021, just 2 weeks before restrictions lifted, allowing in-person gatherings in churches again, Kelowna experienced a week of record high temperatures that led to the activation of the sprinkler system in the auditorium, resulting in massive amounts of water damage. Pews, carpet, electrical, ceiling, insulation, and so much more was all affected. This was no longer just a renovation. This was a complete auditorium restoration. The team did a hard pivot, and within weeks, Redline Construction came onto the project. The 5-phase renovation plan has now turned into a single plan to restore and renovate. Interestingly, that sprinkler burst just a few feet away from where that Isaiah passage was projected. The roller coaster just took a massive drop, but God was still in control. Massive amounts of planning, demolition, engineering, fabricating, and daily construction from the Redline team, and thousands of hours from volunteers all needed to happen. So, a new temporary gathering space was created in the refinery, our next-gen building right here on campus. For more than a year, we continued to gather online and once again in person. And it wasn't lost on us that we were gathering in a space called the refinery. That's exactly what God wanted to do in us as well. As our in-person and online services began to grow again, and yes, be refined, a small group of prayer warriors gathered every Friday morning to pray in the auditorium that was literally ripped down to the studs. This time would become foundational. God was renewing, restoring, rebuilding hope. Well, word spread, and the Friday 6 a.m. prayer gathering grew into a small army. Time and time again, God seeded Isaiah 43, 18-19 into the hearts and minds of those who gathered. Forget the former things. Do not dwell in the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. You, the community of Trinity, banded together. You prayed hard for God's best. You prayed for God's blessing, and you wrote prayers, scripture, and names of others who have yet to experience the grace of Jesus in the walls, the floor, and the ceilings. Right now, you are sitting on, under, and surrounded by those prayers. Then, on November 20th, 2022, after 989 days, we moved into our newly renovated space. The ride to get here has been hard, scary, and uncertain. And that's exactly where He wants us to be. Dependent, listening, holding on to nothing but Him. We began with the intent of renewing our home. Little did we know, God wanted to renew our hearts. And the ride is far from over.